Is everything in place?
You weren't supposed to relieve me.
I know, but I felt like taking a shift.
You like him, don't you? You like watching him.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
Are you sure this line is clean?
Yeah, of course I'm sure.
I better go.
That was you on my computer. How did you do that?
Right now, all I can tell you is that you're in danger. I brought you here to warn you.
What?
They're watching you, Leo.
Who is?
Please just listen. I know why you're here, Neo. I know what you've been doing. I know why you hardly sleep. Why you live alone and why night you sit at your computer. I was looking for an answer. It's the question that drives us all. It's the question that brought you here. You know the question, just as I do. It's looking for you. And it will find you if you want it to.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
I was...
Look again. Freeze it.
This isn't the Matrix.
No. If you are not one of us, you are one of them.
What are they?
They are everyone, and they are no one. We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. Someone is going to have to fight them.
Someone.
I won't lie to you, Neo. But where they have failed, you will succeed.
Why?
Yet their strength and their speed are still based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be.
What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets? That I can dodge bullets? That I can dodge bullets?
No, Neo. No, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to. You won't have to. You won't.
This is it? Let me give you one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
At last. Welcome. I imagine that right now you're feeling you have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate? Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is. Do you know what I'm talking about? You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. that you are a slave like everyone else. You were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. Unfortunately, no one can be told. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to be. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson. It seems that you've been living one of these lives has a future, and one of them does not.
Who is it?
I'm going to be as forthcoming as I can. My colleagues believe that I'm wasting my time with you, but I wish to do the right thing. If you're willing to wipe the slate clean, give you a fresh start. All that we're asking in return is your cooperation, and you give me my phone call. You disappoint me.
You can't scare me with this Gestapo crap. I know my rights. I want my phone call. I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world. Where we go from there, is a choice I leave to you.
Yeah, I just noticed this video clip that went missing from my laptop, which obviously I'll have to re-record on. And basically what this is regarding, part that went missing, it's based on, you know, people like Jeremy Clarkson, political activist MC Low Key. Two examples of, you know, well, two British people who basically speak, you know, political activism. I mean, especially Low Key, when you think about Jeremy Clarkson. If you're a Top Gear fan, you know, you'll know that a lot of those shows, he himself, you know, he used to talk about basically things that you would class as political activism, you know, like mainly to do with roads and stuff and taxes. But what you see, what they have in common, obviously political activism or anything, you know, that speaks against, you know, of how politics and stuff is run. And then you also see that they both have popularity, you know, they get a lot of publicity for what they speak about, which is another thing they have in common. And you know, when you tie those things together, you know, you'll see there's a reason, you know, why these two men again, you know, who ended up having their images, you know, their reputations ruined from basically based on the publicity. I mean, Low Key, he's a popular MC. And then we're talking about Jeremy Clarkson, obviously Top Gear, which is a worldwide shown car show. But you know, the fact is, you know, when that's a worldwide show and Jeremy Clarkson is getting a lot of views, you know, across the world, and where he's speaking about how the Houses of Parliament, etc., etc., you know, run the country via, you know, through the tax system, everything. You know, this is where it ties along with both of those people. You know, we'll start off with Jeremy Clarkson for starters. And this is what I'll recap on that video that went missing. They're basically, anyone who watches Top Gear will recall him, you know, saying about contemplating leaving Top Gear to go into politics himself. And you know what I did from analysis and memory is, all I know is, as soon as he went onto that path, you know, the Vietnam special, you know, all of a sudden, you know, this comment, which, you know, I did see as, you know, a racist remark in a way, but what I put across on this point, that side, is, you know, that it was blown out of proportion, you know, as soon, you know, that basically the way I see it, he was on about joining, might have been Derby or somewhere, you know, like a political, as an MP. You know, they found an excuse, to me, you know, that man basically slipped up with something they could use to damage his reputation. You know, either to get him sacked from Top Gear, and you also, you know, ruin his chances of actually getting into Parliament himself. Because a lot of people used to say the slogan, Jezza for Prime Minister, originally as well. Obviously the man has a lot of support, or did, enough support. So, you know, as soon as that happened, you know, as soon as basically he talked about going into politics, as soon as they would have found an excuse to, you know, ruin his reputation, i.e. the Vietnam special, that's what they did, you know. And then, you know, as you know, recently, basically, which I was told about, which is why he was sacked or whatever, some kind of thing about him assaulting somebody in a restaurant. You know, what was shown from the original articles was witnesses who were there at the start. You know, they all said they didn't see him assault this person who accused him of it. And then, you know, I was shown articles further on, not long after, where the same witnesses changed what they said, and they were saying, I know he did it. Now, what you see initially, first of all, you know, crime-wise, you know, if you saw someone do that, firstly, then that's what you saw. You would have said that they hit them if they did, you know, not change it around. So, you know, that tells me something, you know, about that itself, because it seems, you know, the pattern is, every time whoever it is, we all know who that is, has found an excuse to ruin this man's reputation, you know, finding the littlest thing, you know, to make it look worse than it is. They've done it to him. Low key, you know, UK MC, political activist MC, I don't know the story behind him, but, you know, he made this track called Terrorist and that, and on this track he talks about, you know, basically having spies put in his circle, you know, having his reputation ruined, you know, same as Jeremy Clarkson. So, you know, it's more than a pattern when you see, you know, that two people who basically speak against the system, you know, all of a sudden, you know, end up, you know, being crapped on, basically, you know, having their reputations ruined. There's a lot of things behind that, and it's not just, you know, it'll be over in the USA as well. You know, you've got to ask yourselves, you know, why does it seem, you know, that as soon as somebody, low-key Jeremy Clarkson, you know, when they speak out against this, and as soon as the people in power find an excuse to basically ruin their reputation and make them look like a bad person, you know, make them look like, there's a reason for it. Because as you know, speaking along the lines, you know, you ruin someone's reputation, you know, like he's saying he was accused of being a terrorist and that, you know, that's not going to get him help, is it? Jeremy Clarkson accused of this and that, you know, assault and that. That's not going to do him well either, especially with Jeremy Clarkson contemplating going into the Houses of Parliament. You know, it's going to ridicule them and make them look like bad people, and nobody's going to stick on their side. And to me, that's the mind of a schemer, You know, the kind of people that basically know they're speaking the truth and thus, you know, find a way to ruin their reputation. I mean, David Icke, I'm sure that man is probably more wary of what he does. But, you know, I'm sure if they could find, now he's getting, you know, nearly 1 million followers and he's getting a lot of publicity. They do the same to him. You know, they probably watch him, follow him. And, you know, if they see him do anything, you know, like Jeremy Clarkson did, lose his temper in a restaurant, you know, they do the same. So, you know, critical thinking, which is what we all do, me and David Icke mainly, you know, ask yourself why. You know, why do these people that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, get their reputations ruined deliberately through media? You know, as soon as they get popularity and publicity to speak anything, you know, which they oppose, or, you know, as they're known as socialist and that. And that's what I ask you, because, you know, it seems more blatant to me why, you know. So this is what I put across. You know, never listen to the media, and you know, because you can put patterns into anyone. You know, there could be a celebrity or anything out there, you know, who does anything, and, you know, all of a sudden they'll get shat on. And it doesn't always have to be to do with politics either. It can be to do with anything, you know, because when someone has popularity and they speak out against anyone, and, you know, there's people who own those corporate-owned media channels and papers, you know, they can easily do something, make up a rumour, you know, make up false evidence against a person, and then, you know, using the population of those nations of the world, which they can brainwash with, they can make them easily listen to anything that's been said. So, you know, briefly put, you know, and summarising the patterns, you know, we'll stick with Low-Key and Jeremy Clarkson, 2 British citizens, you know, basically publicity, socialists, all of a sudden, you know, they get their reputations ruined, you know, they get convicted of this and that. It's blown all over the media, front page news, ironically, you know, Jeremy Clarkson anyway. Low-Key, as I said, I don't know the full story and what was behind that, but I can guarantee, because he's Iraqi, and, you know, the stereotypical thing behind, you know, all this terrorism stuff, it wouldn't have helped. That's why they were calling him a terrorist in the first place, because, you know, with the brainwashed population.
Mind sciences, or the study of human behavior in relation to the mind, is the newest of all the arts. It's less than 100 years old. And it is by far the one that is most cloaked in secrecy. Mind control. CIA's operation. MK Ultra was one program with a series of programs that came out of the CIA to experiment with different types of mind control, using drugs, using electroshock, using insulin shock, and mind control. CIA's operation.
So, you know, that's where it goes wrong for them, because, you know, what they don't realise is when they basically do these things, there are people who notice those things, if they've got the skills or even the intelligence and the mind to even realise the blatant obvious. But yeah, Low-Key, I mean, it wouldn't have helped him, you know, if they really was calling him a terrorist and that. There'd be a reason, you know, that ties in mainly to do with his you know, his bloodline, you know, his motherland, and what's going on over there, which is more than coincidental based on his race. So, you know, the way I see it, you know, that anyone who's basically a socialist, it's call them socialists, you know, that's what Margaret Thatcher originally called them. You know, any who gets the publicity to share their thoughts with other people and wake those other people up instead of being brainwashed by the media. You know, they get shut on all of a sudden. So, you know, anybody out there who is a socialist, especially in the UK, you end up getting publicity like David Icke and that. You know, always be aware, you know, of where you go and what you do. Because it seems, you know, they watch you. They'll watch you, you know, like they did with Jeremy Clarkson, for example. And as soon as they make you see you make anything they can use to incriminate you or make you look like a criminal, you know, they'll do it. And then they'll throw it in the newspapers and in the news. And they'll be, you know, making sure everybody hears this and that. And as soon as they do that, your reputation is ruined. And when your reputation is ruined, you lose more followers and you get less trust from those people who did. And any potential followers that you could wake up, you know, to follow you on what you're trying to wake them up from, they'll lose as well. You'll lose as well. And there's a reason behind that, because, you know, at the end of the day, yourself, David Icke, Jamie Icke, your son, anyone like that, you know, they want to keep you from getting that publicity to wake people up who don't realise those things, and thus they do what they do. You know, they make sure that they keep everyone asleep, because as you see, you know, critical thinking, asking things and questions isn't a common thing, especially in the UK. As we can see from analysis of the British public, they believe everything they read, you know, without even questioning it. Like I said, Daily Mail example, you know, that Google document I did based on the Russian-US conflict. And as I said, Daily Mail in the papers. And you know, this is what I said, which I think was on the original recording what went missing as well. That I read through that and using my skills I've got. You know, I was someone who didn't read for that and then not start to realise things. And as you see on that document, you know, you'll see how I put it together, you know, how my mind worked from reading through that, sifting through it, and then, you know, referring back to what something said at the top from the same person, which is contradictory, and things that said they were lying, and these people are looking for support on this, you know, this Russian-US conflict. And it doesn't look good for them when they're looking for support, and yet they're showing that they're lying, making lies over a serious matter which involves a possible, you know, world war. Think of World War I, World War II. So, you know, you've got to think about those things, because, you know, I'm the only person out of probably millions whoever across Britain who would have read that Daily Mail article. This was online, but it would have been in the paper, you know, when it was out that day. Very intelligent people as well. And I'm the only person, as soon as I started reading that, who started noticing lies. So, you know, I try to put this across out to anyone and make sure that you realise, you know, because basically, I'll continue in a second. Because, you know, like Loki actually says on his terrorist track, he says that there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. And what he's saying is, those people who point their fingers at Jeremy Clarkson and Loki as being this, are actually pointing their fingers back at themselves by trying to divert away that they're the guilty. And they're trying to, you know, reflect what they are onto the person they point their fingers at. But what they don't realise is subconsciously they're pointing their fingers back at themselves. So, you know, you always got to ask yourself these things. And why, you know, why suddenly they get shut on in the first place and accused of this and that, you know, first of all when they're, you know, if they're speaking bullshit anyway. you know, it's a very serious matter. And this is another thing that went missing from this video, which I noticed was you know, and I'm just putting this across as a critical question regarding David Cameron. In this case, in where, you know, he was basically saying, you know, when he was being, you know, people were mad at him for not looking into investigation of the paedophile parliament cover-up, you know, that he didn't look into it himself. The man was saying, oh, these are conspiracy theories. Now, this is a critical question. You know, he's in charge, so why, you know, why does he seem so adamant, you know, to have this not looked into, you know, if he's not part of one of those politicians that are being accused or are known to be, you know, a child abuse? Now, this is what I ask myself, critical question. And that's up to you, you know, to decide on yourselves. But, you know, all I know is, you know, there's a reason why these people, you know, all of a sudden get shut on. And there's a pattern between it. You know, as I said, Low-Key and Jeremy Clarkson, you know, which have media, either through music or television, publicity, who are socialists. And, you know, they can, you know, all of a sudden their reputation's ruined. You know, it's more than coincidental. Especially, you know, we can tie especially in with Jeremy Clarkson, but I'll move on to Low-Key in a minute. As I said, you know, all of a sudden, you know, the slight comment which I mentioned, that all of a sudden, that was blown out of proportion more than anything. You know, more than anything than you can imagine, you know, for what he said. And it didn't have proof or backup to it of what he was saying. And then, you know, as soon as that this restaurant one is the worst one, because, you know, as I said, these same papers that initially reported he didn't assault this other man, he just lost his temper. And then a few months later, the papers are saying, the witnesses are saying that he did hit this man, assault him. You know, to me, that's showing a lot of blatantness that he was set up and accused of something he didn't do. Low-Key, I mean, this is what him and his friend, I can't remember the dude who's on the track, you know, that original track they made, where the dude's basically talking about, explaining how it doesn't make sense about Low-Key. If he was accused of being a domestic terrorist or whatever, you know, as he explains in the track, you know, listen to Low-Key's music and albums, and you say, that track sounds, and you say, you know, how can he be, you know, what the Terrorism Act 2000 classes a terrorist act as, when the man says nothing about violence, or, you know, implies or uses forms or threats of violence on that track towards anyone? First of all, legally, probably why won the case, you know, why they didn't do it. And then you've got to ask yourself again, why did they do that? And then you tie things together back to Low-Key and Jeremy Clarkson, both British citizens, socialists, political activists. And then, you know, then the critical question I asked, you know, gives you the answer, you know, if you're clever enough to work it out yourself. So, you know, that's what I'll leave on that. And you can decide for yourselves on what we're talking about. Thanks for listening. Alex signing out.